Hello and welcome to the SBK Betting Podcast. Tom Collins here in the hot seat this week, and I'm joined, as ever, by the brilliant Ross Miller. We're going to be having a look in this episode at Ascot on Saturday, where we'll go into detail on the Swinley Chase and the Ascot Chase, before heading over to Haydock and looking at the Grand National Trial, and then we'll move on to our Napa Next Best. So there's a lot to come in the next 20 or 25 minutes or so. Ross, just us two this week. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Feeling very underdressed, TC. You could have really chucked me under the bus with your intro there, joined by the thoroughly underdressed Ross Miller. No, good. Still frustrated with a lot of second places, hitting the crossbar. It's tough when it's like that, but I think you have to I'm doing the same work, I'm doing the same process. People seem to forget that anything to do with horses requires a huge amount of luck, as we've seen with Sergino in the last couple of weeks. Horses require a great amount of luck, as does tipping. So yeah, keeping my head above water, ploughing on, but wouldn't mind my luck changing just a little bit.
Yeah, three things to mention on the back of that. Firstly, yes, I am overdressed. I'm on Sky in a few minutes. I'm usually the one that's the underdressed person, so it's a bit different. Secondly, as you say, with runners up, it just happens, doesn't it? I mean, everyone goes through spells that are so frustrating. I had one on the US from November to basically the end of last month, where it just seems like every time you're hitting the crossbar, but as you say, if you stick by the same MO, you're going to come back to form. It's not like you're picking the wrong horses. Yours are going very close. And thirdly, you talked about Sergino there. You did a brilliant video on socials this week about Sergino and the injury and whatnot. For those who may have missed it or don't follow you on socials, could you just clarify what you put in that video?
Yeah, just I didn't like that there was a lot of spurious claims that he'd not been upfront with people and said that it was a knock, and how could it be a knock if it got infected? So I just put a video up saying this is the hind leg structure. This is why actually it's more serious, because when infections get near tendons, ligaments, and potentially joint capsules, can be really quite catastrophic. And I just get frustrated that the mainstream media perhaps don't explain things as well as they could.
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned a load from that video, as I'm sure plenty of people did on social media. If you don't follow Ross, go and follow him right now on Twitter. Lots of good, insightful videos, especially from Miller's Movers, the podcast that is run by SBK. Okay, let's move on to Saturday's action. But before we do that, a quick recap of last week. J-Lo provided myself a winner in the Denman Chase, 7-2. He went off at probably half that price. Navajo Indy also gave Ross and myself a good place in the William Hill Hurdle. Ross, how frustrating is Navajo Indy? He always runs well, but he just doesn't seem to pick up the bridle early.
Yeah, he's going to want to go up in trip. I thought it was really interesting. Tom Simmons said they'll probably miss Cheltenham. He thinks he had a hard race because he's in top gear the whole way. I just wonder whether Gavin could have got a bit more vigorous a bit early. I think he was a bit patient across the top. I think if he'd have used a bit of petrol then, I don't think he'd have beaten the winner, but I think he could have got our heart rate up a little bit and got us a bit closer. A horse that you've got to follow going forward. Tom Simmons is a very capable trainer, and yeah, frustrating, but he's one to keep on side.
Yeah, it gave us the each way money at around 7-1, but you didn't even see him in the shot until about 200 yards from home when he started finishing with a flourish. Bit frustrating, but as you say, I think he's a horse for the tracker. Moving ahead to this weekend, SBK is offering a free racing ACCA, minimum 4 legs, and you have to opt in to qualify, but go and check that out. I know quite a few people who watch this video weekly love to do racing accumulators, especially on the weekend, and this is a fantastic offer from SBK, so do not miss out. Our Saturday racing preview will start at Ascot, as already talked about, with the Swinley Chase, the 3 o'clock. 57 grand up for top prize in this contest. Victorino heads the market at 5-2. He is an Ascot specialist. Can he do it again?
Yeah, I think he can, TC. He is an Ascot specialist. I think he's a Charlie Deutsch specialist as well. Charlie clearly knows this horse really well, because he can be a bit of a squeaky watch sometimes, because you think, come on, Charlie, do a little bit. But he clearly knows how to get his horse into a rhythm and how to win on him. I thought he was quite a snug winner in the end last time. The changing man, he's finished second more times than me this season. He again ran well last time off a higher mark. That gives a little bit of weight to the form. The pair pulled a long way clear of the third in the closing stages. He likes this nice ground. Venetia's form dipped, didn't it, sort of January, early February, but she's right back in form now, up around 20%. I think he's got standout credentials. I would just mention as well, Ansam. He was a frustrating watch last time behind indoor. David Maxwell rode a really good winner at this track, but I don't think Ansam was ever really fully put into the race. He sort of gave them a bit of a head start, pulled quite hard in the first sort of mile. On his first start of offences for a while, he's got dropped another £2. He's now £2 below his last winning mark. He likes small fields. He likes going right-handed and a nice bit of ground. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see him hit the frame at a decent enough price.
Yeah, Ansam's definitely an interesting runner. Quick word on him before I give my selection. Do you think he'll be ridden more aggressively this time? Go straight to the front? That seems to be how he produces his best efforts.
Evan Williams' yard would be the second most difficult yard for me to predict behind John Joe O'Neill's yard. I hope so. They have just landed a few little gambles and horses that look to be well plotted have gone in the last fortnight, 3 weeks. So yeah, I hope so. I just mentioned John Joe O'Neill's yard. Hashting is a horse I really loved last year. He jumped abysmally at Windsor last time on slow ground. I don't see this suiting him at all. If they get a bit quick going down the back, I think his jumping could fall apart. So that's why I went against him, for all that he's a horse I do like. I think lively ground, this track going a bit quicker might not suit him.
I completely agree with you on John Joe's runner. He jumped terribly, as you say, and if he's going to adopt those hold-up tactics again, I think he's going to get in real trouble down the back straight. I'm also going to be with Victorino in this contest. Short enough price, around 5-2, 3-1 at the time of recording, but as Ross said, he just ticks the most boxes in this race. Good course form, 3 out of 4 here. The only defeat came in this race last year when he was behind 3 under through 5. However, he just didn't seem to produce his usual effort that time around. Last time in the Silver Cup, I thought he was excellent. He jumped well. And due to his running style, it always feels like there's a little bit more in the locker because he only gets there right on the line. Charlie Deutsch only used the whip twice, and that they were both within the final 150 yards last time. I think there's more to come. And despite the fact I believe he's up £3 in the weights, I still think he's well treated. We'll move on to the featured Grade 1 Ascot Chase at 337. The market has 3 horses on top, 3 horses as the rags. The 3 on top, they're finding it hard to separate them. Pic D'Orhy is the current favourite around 2-1. Corbett's Cross is 2-1 with some firms, 9-4 with others, and L'Homme Pressé is then around 9-4 or 5-2. So 3 horses, Ross, at the top of the market. Where are you going here? I think there's a clear standout, isn't there?
I'm not so sure. I'm in agreement with you because I know what you've tipped. My approach to this was I just want to take on Pic D'Orhy. I thought he was thoroughly lethargic last time. Beat a horse 3 lengths who was £25 inferior. I thought it was a really moderate run. Paul Nicholls' form has been really poor. Like I said last week, he seemed to be sort of denying there was anything wrong. Finally, he's come out in an interview yesterday where he's announced that he's sort of changing his buying policy and said that a few of them are not scoping all that well and they're perhaps under a little bit of a cloud. So for those reasons, you want to take Pic D'Orhy on. He does get his ground, he does get his track. It was what to take him on with. L'Homme Pressé, I love. Can slightly jump out to his left, although I did think he was straighter in the King George this year than he'd been previously. But Charlie Deutsch mentioned last year when he was beaten in this race, if you remember, social media melted, and Charlie Deutsch hadn't tried, and neither had was it no, not Cora Rambler, the horse of Lucinda Russell's. Hadn't tried, given Pic D'Orhy too much rope, and he said he simply took a while to warm up to his jumping. I don't see why that's going to change. He looked a little bit the same at Cheltenham last time, was doing his best work at the end of 3 miles. So I'm a bit concerned about this trip for him, for all that I think he's going to be no back number in the Gold Cup if he gets there. So yeah, I came down on Corbett's Cross. He's a classy horse. Again, Emmett Mullins, he's quite hard to guess, isn't he, what's going on? I think in the King George, he got taken off his feet early. Yes, that was over 3 miles, but I think it's more of a speed test than this is going to be. I think he's got half a chance of finding a rhythm here. And he is a horse with a bit of pace. He won a Grade 2 novice hurdle over 2 miles on decent enough ground. He won over 2 mile 5 furlongs at Fairyhouse very snugly indeed. If he's got his jumping just ironed out a little bit, it wasn't great in the early stages at Kempton. I think he's the classy horse in this field. The other one I would just mention is Blue Lord. He only had 1 run last year in the John Durkan, ran really well behind Fast or Slow. That was a good run. Then wasn't seen, 380 odd days off. He's been given some quite stiff tasks this year. The market hasn't appeared to fancy him. He's a classy horse, if he can get back to his best. Got JJ Slevin going on, replacing Darryl Jacob. With the greatest respect to Darryl Jacob, who I think has had half a mind on retirement for perhaps the last season, the double green horses have improved for JJ Slevin going on. I mean, Matata improved beyond all recognition. There's been 1 or 2 that have definitely improved for having his assistance. If he bounced back to form, I don't think he'd be a back number, but my approach to this was to take Pic D'Orhy on. I think Corbett's Cross is the one, provided Emma is playing with a fully straight bat.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, there's going to be a lot of agreeing in this podcast, I think. Not to go over exactly what you have said, but my process of elimination was L'Homme Pressé, I do think, is obviously much better suited by left-handed track. And the run last year, the horse you were talking about, by the way, Lucinda's, was a horse-signor. Both of those were just held up. Well, L'Homme Pressé wasn't necessarily held up. He was just losing ground at his obstacles. A horse-signor was held up with just an almighty task to catch Picdorhy and never really got in the race. Lompresse just lost too much ground for me, and if he jumps like that again, I couldn't take him at a short price, albeit his talent level is high. And as you said, Picdorhy, I think he's probably regressing, isn't he? That run last time in the small field was below par on RPRs. He loves the track. He loves going out in front and dictating in small fields. So that's a tick for him. But I just think Corbett's Cross has much more ability at this stage of his career. As you say again, he needs to iron out his jumping because that is his flaw. But when he puts it all together, he really puts it all together. And if Connections want to run him in the Gold Cup, they're going to want to see a better display on Saturday than what we saw last time out with Corbett's Cross. So he's also my selection in this race. Hopefully he doesn't let Picdorhy get away from him early. We'll move on to the Grand National Trial next. That's the 3:15 at Haydock. This race is cut up a bit. Only the 10 runners. Maximum field could have been 20, but since the entry stage, the field has been slashed down to 10. Jubilee Express is the 130 favourite, ahead of Val Dance at around 9 to 2. What are your views on this contest? It's more wide open.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, small field again for a decent pot, and you'll have stacks of horses that are going to Cheltenham that won't get a run. I'd be jumping up and down if I had a staying horse that goes on, on decent enough ground. 'Cause it's not going to be an absolute bog at Haydock. You can apply the same to the Swinley Chase. So you sometimes pull your hair out at some race planning. People that get so fixated with 4 days in March and they let perfectly good prize money go to waste. I think we're on the same one here as well, TC. Yeah, man, for Gavin Cromwell. Won it last year, albeit off a £9 lower mark, and was getting run down in the closer stages, but I think he was idling. He was comfortably the best horse through that race. I think you put him up last year, and I don't think you ever had a moment's worry throughout that race. He was always going much the best. He's been slightly disappointing since jumped like a combine harvester in the Irish Grand National, and then hasn't jumped all that much better twice this year over 3 miles. But for me, the key is small fields for this horse. When he gets in amongst them, I don't think he looks at his fences all that well. He panics a little bit and his jumping goes to pot. Nice small field here. The other crucial thing, when we're tipping on a Thursday morning, we're trying to guess the weather forecast as well. There's 3 mil that could get into Haydock. They verti-drained the inside of the track. If that 3 mil turned to 5 mil, which it quite easily could do, it will ride a little bit more testing. That won't inconvenience him. But also, if it stays as described, which is good to soft in places, he's got formed behind Victorino and Ascot on decent ground over 3 miles. So that's not a concern either. Gavin Cromwell, 21%. And you just have to fit. I would think, I haven't worked out, but I would think that percentage is massively increased on his runners in the UK this season. Everything he sends over, you've got to fear. I don't think a £9 higher mark will stop him. I will just have a little bit, though, on Famous Bridge as well. In first-time cheap pieces, it's his first time at this trip since he unseated at around about the 17th or 18th fence last year, when still going really nicely, albeit behind Yeah Man, who was going to absolutely hose up as he did. He's £1 higher than his last winning mark. Nicky Rich has had a really good season, 18%, and I would think he's been about that since the end of November. Again, this horse won't mind a little bit nicer ground. Again, if it gets soft, I don't think it'll inconvenience him. Provided the cheap pieces don't just upset his jumping. Sometimes that can happen with horses, and he's not always the most fluid jumper, but I'd give him a chance as well.
Yeah, man is currently 6 to 1. Famous Bridge is around 10 to 1 at the time of recording. 2 selections there from Ross. I'm going to be with Yeah Man, as you say. Normal viewers of this podcast will be thinking, what are these two goons doing? They're agreeing. We never normally agree when it comes to jumps racing waffle, to be fair. So it seems to be one of those weeks where there are clear standouts and we're on the same wavelength. I don't want to repeat exactly what you said, but he won this race nicely last year, clearly handles the course and distance. Came back this season, looks a better horse, running placed in the Troy Town and the Thyestes, and Gavin Cromwell's strike rate is around 21%, so he's firing on all cylinders. He just looks the standout, despite the fact he's going up £11 in the weights. He's a good each way play, I'd say, in a race like this at around 6 to 1. Hard to see him finishing out of the top 3. That's our 3 feature race previews, but this is the moment we're all waiting for. It's the time for the nap and the next best. There's going to be a little agreeing, but not as much agreeing as so far. Ross, you can go first.
That's very kind of you. I'll go with the nap then. It's the 225 at Ascot. Joyeux Machin for Dan and Harry Skelton. He was a massive eye catcher under poor young £7 claimer Harry Atkins last time out at Wetherby. Over 2 mile 3. He ended up finishing third. Was a real eye catcher, basically because I don't think Harry could hold him up the home straight. He was ridden out the back, met a little bit of traffic on the turn, which was a job well done by the young jockey. But then as it opened up, he really rattled home. He had to try a little bit inside the last couple of furlongs. Got bumped a pound for that by the handicapper. But on his very best form with Paul Nolan, he beat Jungle Pros of Gordon Elliott's, who's rated 134. He slammed him by 7 lengths. This is a really talented horse. He's been well campaigned by the Skeltons this year. He ran in a 2-mile handicap hurdle at Cheltenham in December. That was the race won by Mirabad, who just went off like a scalded cat, and everyone else in behind got their fractions wrong. And you could see 5 or 6 jockeys at the top of the hill thinking, I've got this wrong, so now it's a case of how far can I get beat, how much can I come down in the handicap. I would certainly put Joya Machan in that grade. And then he ran in the international hurdle behind Constitution Hill. He had absolutely no chance whatsoever. Weatherby last time up in trip, I think, showed a bit more of this horse's ability. And I think now's the time they can try. This is quite a competitive looking race on paper. I think they can win this, not get too much damage in the handicap from Mr. Handicapper on Tuesday morning, and then look to go to the Cheltenham Festival with a real chance as well in one of those intermediate distance handicap hurdles. So Joya Machan is the nap. The next best is my old favourite, Don Levant, runs in the 1:15, the 3-mile handicap hurdle at Ascot. This is his ground. Jess has tried to steal my thunder a couple of times this year, putting him up. And actually, I think the time he didn't actually run, the race was off. He doesn't really go on soft ground. He ran really well at Chepstow on his penultimate start, finishing 3rd from out the fog. So you don't quite know how well he was going at various stages of that. He then went to Windsor, 2-mile 6 on soft, loose ground. Windsor, the jockeys, as we said, are still figuring out how to ride that. The one thing you can say at the moment is hold up horses, particularly over hurdles. It certainly doesn't suit. He's a hold up horse. He could never get into it. You can put a line through that. He's now back to a mark of 123. That was the mark he ran off really well at Chepstow. He loves good ground. He'll like this flattish track. And he's a 12-year-old now, but he's still showing plenty of zest. And as I said earlier with Ansam, Evan Williams has landed a few touches in the last few weeks. I'd be interested to see what the market makes of him midway through Saturday, but I'll put him up now as my next best.
Yeah, so the nap of for Ross is Joya Machan in the 225 at Ascot. He's around 5-1 at the time of recording, and Don Levant is Ross's next best in the 1:15 at Ascot. No price at the time of recording, but watch out for the market there. My nap is also going to be Joya Machan in the 225 Ascot. I'll let you into a little bit of a secret. He wasn't going to be my nap. I was actually going to put up Bo Zenith in the same race, but he wasn't declared by Nicky Henderson. I think he's a fascinating horse next time he runs Bo Zenith, so don't give up on him. But Joya Machan is now the nap, and he's a clear standout in the race to me at 5-1. For all that you've said, he was tried at Grade 1 level twice for former connections. This season, he's basically been ridden not to win. That's what it comes across as anyway. Last time at Weatherby, he was a huge eye-catcher, making up ground hand over fist in the home straight. He looked like he was a certain next time out winner. Got up £1 in the weights, but on his best efforts in Ireland, he's still very well treated. And as you say, this could be a quite obvious Cheltenham plot for the Skeltons. Harry Skelton on board for the first time. That's a big positive. And my next best runs at Wincanton in the 136, and that is Golden Ace. Now, this year's Kingwell is a small field, only 4 runners, but it's quite a hot race with Burdett Road in there as the even money favourite and Golden Ace at around 5-2-ish. I think that's a good price on the mare. She gets £8 from Burdett Road, who is no back number by any means and probably is the most likely winner of the race. But I don't think there should be such a disparity in their prices in the market. She finally gets on soft ground, and not deep ground, but soft ground, which is what she wants. And crucially, returns to 2 miles, which is the big tick in the box for Golden Ace. Been running over 2.5 recently, just not really getting home, travelling well into the contest and then weakening. And I think the drop to 2 miles is the obvious plus for Golden Ace in the Kingwell. That is the 136 at Wincanton. That is everything covered for this weekend. Plenty of selections then for Ascot, Haydock, Nap, next best. Ross and I are agreeing on all counts, so it's either going to be a fantastic podcast or a terrible one, I imagine, but hopefully it's the former. I hope you've enjoyed the episode regardless. Jess will be back next week. She'll be in Saudi Arabia, as will I. Don't think we'll be filming together, but we'll both be in Saudi for the Saudi Cup. Ross, I presume you're joining us again from your home?
Yeah, no, my invite to Saudi got lost in the post, TC, so maybe next year.
Maybe. Just a reminder that you haven't signed up to SVK, go and do it right now. New customers get £40 in free bets when you bet £10 for the first time after signing up. Also, you can take advantage of the free racing ACCA, which I've already discussed at the top of the podcast. Minimum 4 legs, and you have to opt in to qualify for that. And you can also listen to the podcast in the app as well. So if you don't want to trawl onto YouTube to watch us, go onto the app, make your way to the horse racing page, and you can listen to the podcast there every single week. If you are watching this on YouTube, however, whack a like down below, subscribe as well so you don't miss out on our content, and put a comment with who you fancy this week, whether you think it's going to be a successful podcast or not. Best of luck with your selections on Saturday, and to you as well, Ross. Hopefully we have a good week, and we'll see you next weekend.